Hi everybody, my name is Marcos Casiano, and I'm here to tell you about my tales from the road. Some of my adventures of traveling the highways and byways of U.S. and Canada, but we never got booked in Mexico or Europe. I don't know why. But anyways, this tale has to do with going west. There used to be a saying, I used to hear it a lot when I was a kid, go west, young man, go west. I think it had to do with, at one time there was a lot of opportunity in the U.S. There was the gold rush of 1849, so I guess that's how California basically got started, with everybody went west, except me. So anyways, after having lived about 25 plus years in the Tennessee Valley, which is, like between Nashville and Huntsville, Alabama, Huntsville being the heart of the Tennessee Valley, I was growing a little tired of living there, mainly because I didn't like the winters. I was really growing tired of the winters. It seemed like sometimes it seems like winter just wouldn't end. Now, granted, it's not that cold in the south like it is up north, but still, it gets below freezing. We have freezing rain, we have snow, and I was just tired of it. I was wanting to go someplace where, hey, it doesn't snow anymore and I can be halfway warm in January and February. So Florida was where I was wanting to go. So one day I'm talking to the bass player in this band I was playing in, and I said, hey, I want to get a computer and an email address. And he goes, well, what do you want a computer for? Just for email and just to surf the web? I go, yeah. He says, well, you don't have to get a computer for that. You can get a thing that's called Web TV. And he said, with that, you can get online, you can surf the web, and you'll have an email address if that's all you're going to do. And I go, well, that's all I need to do for now. So I bought this Web TV, and it turned out I actually ended up knowing some other people that had it too. About two other people, and they were musicians too. I guess they were cheap like me. But anyways, it turned out to be a good little device. It had a little box. It had a keyboard, a regular size keyboard. You hook it up into your television, and you're ready to go. It only took about 5 minutes, and then you tell it what you want your email address to be. It would be like whatever your name is, or whatever you want it to be, at webtv.com. So now I've got web TV. I'm ready to go. So it seemed like one night at the gig, a couple nights later, the bass player asked me, how's your Web TV doing? I go, oh, man, it's great. Thanks, man, for helping me out with it. And he goes, well, he says, there's this website called, gigs.com or something like that. He says, you can get on there and you can find musicians from all over the U.S. and you can communicate with them and see what they're up to. He says, you just go on there and you just type in any city, like it could be San Antonio, Chicago or whatever, and all this stuff will just pop up with what musicians are doing. I said, man, that's great. So I get home one night and I said, man, I want to move to Florida. So let me see what's going on in the Tampa Bay area. So I type in Tampa Bay, and this guy's band pops up, and his name is Chuck. And I contact him. I say, hey, I'd like to move to Florida. I check out the music scene down there. I'm thinking of moving down there. And he says, great. He says, well, if you ever come down here, he says, you're welcome to come in and sit in with my band, and we'll take it from there. So a little while after that, I take him up on it. I go down to Tampa Bay, and before I leave, I actually send him a message. He gives me his phone number. So while I'm in Tampa, I give him a call, and he tells me where he's playing at. And I said, okay, I'll see you tonight. So I go to the club he's playing at. I don't remember the name of it. And things work out well. I sat in. He liked the way I played, and I liked his band. And so we just, said, well, we'll be in touch. Let's stay in touch. So shortly after that, he calls me one day and says, Marcos, can you get down here in about 2 days? He says, I need a drummer. I need someone to start in 2 days. And I said, Chuck, I need more like 2 weeks. I don't know if I can move that fast. I don't know if I can get my house in order, get everything packed up, sell the things I need to do. I'm going to need about 2 weeks. And it's one of those things, I just didn't have a good feeling about it. And I said, well, let me sleep on it, see how I feel the next day. Well, by the next day, he already calls me. And before I can say anything, he says, Marcos, I don't have a good feeling about this. Let's just cancel until another time. Whew, I was relieved because I said, Chuck, I felt the same way. I didn't have a good feeling about it. Let's, maybe another time will come up, and when I got more time, I can go back down to Florida and, more relaxed and, not feel so rushed. So, he said, okay, yeah, okay. So we said our goodbyes. And it seemed like shortly after that, now we're getting into the part of the time of the year in Alabama I didn't like, which was January. And I'm like thinking, I'm getting out of here. I'm going to Florida. I'm like leaving today. I think I called someone and said, I'm leaving. I'm going to Florida. I'm going to say goodbye to all my friends here, And so I was real serious about it. I was about to leave when I felt deep down in my spirit, I felt, you could say, God saying, you're not going anywhere. And so, well, I didn't go. I mean, it was really a strong impression, And it was like one of those things, you know what, I'm not going because something doesn't feel right. And shortly after that, I found out why I didn't go. But it was something good actually happened. And if I had gone to Florida, this situation wouldn't have happened. But I'm not going to get into it. It's not really important. It was like a personal thing. But anyways, after that, yeah, I think almost 2 years go by. I think that's the timeline, about 2 years, and I'm still in Alabama because, like I said, I was dealing with it. My mom calls me and she says, Marcos, your dad is going to have open heart surgery the day after tomorrow. She calls me like on a Tuesday, if I remember. She goes, Thursday he's going in for surgery. I go, wow, and I'm like, do you want me to come and help you? And she's like, no, I'll be okay. But she didn't sound convincing. I go, are you sure, Mom? There's a little bit of a pause. She goes, can you come tomorrow? I go, I'll be right there. So I leave the next day, get to El Paso, go to the hospital where my dad's at. When I get to the hospital room, he seemed surprised because my mom didn't tell him that I was coming. And he seemed like just a little kid. My dad's always been in a kind of a good mood guy. He's kind of quiet, but always in a good mood. And so, like I said, he's like a little kid in the bed, and he was glad to see me. I think my little brother showed up later, and we said our goodbyes. I think we prayed over him, and the next day he's going into open heart surgery in the morning. I can't remember what time he went in, and I think they told us to come back to the hospital. He'll be out like about 1 or 2 in the afternoon. And which was correct. Everything went well. Everything went without a hitch on the surgery, thank God. The only thing that happened was it seemed like about a week after he had his surgery, he got an infection in his leg where they removed the vein, because they remove a vein about, wow, it seems like it's about that long. It's more than a foot. They take it from your inner thigh, and it got infected. And I had been told from someone that this is not uncommon for this to happen. And it was just like, I remember it was like late afternoon, 4 or 5. My dad starts, feeling like he's got a fever. He starts sweating. So I take him to the emergency room at the hospital, and the doctor comes and looks at him, and he just immediately just takes a knife or something and just slices the vein open where they remove the vein. He slices it open, and like blood comes out, of course. And, my dad screamed and said, gosh, it really hurt. They didn't give him any anesthesia. They just did it really fast. And he felt better. Like within an hour, he felt better. And so I took him home, and the hospital gave me a bunch of gauze. They said, now he's got a wound it's about this wide and about that deep also. He said, you're going to have to pack this with gauze every day. I think they said for 2 or 3 weeks until it heals. I said, you don't close the wound back up? He says, no, with this kind of wound, you just pack it with gauze and you leave it open and let the air heal it. I said, okay. So every day I had to remove the gauze, which is very painful for my dad. I never knew whether to do it fast or slow. So I just got to where I was doing it fast. My dad would scream, but he wouldn't hit me. He was a good sport about it. And then I would pack his leg, and I think it hurt a little bit to pack the gauze in there. I had a little tool. I can't remember what I didn't use my hand, but I had something to pack it in there really good. Had to do that every day. Every day I had to pack the wound. So finally, and when it finally healed, because my mom says, man, I can't do it. She says, I'll faint. So I was there, and I packed his wound every day, healed it. So after a while, I can't remember how many, it seemed like it was about a month. It took that long. And by this time, he had his surgery in March, and now, from what I remember, it's May or almost May. And I head back to Alabama, where I was living. But while I was in El Paso, I was like, man, it's really nice that this time of the year down there. April, May was really nice, beautiful. And the sun shines every day in El Paso. It's called the Sun City, where the sun shines every day. That's the motto. And I kept toying around with the idea, well, I want to change the scenery. It's sunny down there in the winter. It's a little warmer down there in the winter. I said, if I can find a gig, I will definitely go down there. I'll move, but it's like, how can I get a gig, And I thought to myself, well, if I really want to move, I'm going to go back to El Paso. I'm going to jump on a plane. I think the band I was playing with in Alabama, I don't think we were working that week. So I'd get on a plane, go back to El Paso. And the first night I go out, I hook up with a band and get to the club, and they're setting up. And I asked the guitar player, I said, hey, my name is Marcos. I'm a drummer. I'm looking for work. And he looks at me and he says, we're looking for a drummer. He says, this guy here, he's just subbing for us tonight. And I said, oh, great. So they played a set, and then they came over, we talked. The next set, I sat in with them. I don't know if I played the whole set or just 3 or 4 songs, but they liked the way I played. They were a pretty good band. Then on break, we discussed some things, and they said, we have a gig. I think it was the next night or the night after that. Do you want to play it with us? I go, yeah, but I don't live here in El Paso right now, and I don't have a drum set. And they said, well, no problem. I know a guy. He'll give us a drum set, and you can use it. You can play. Okay, so I played with him the next night, or a couple nights later. I played with him, and I said, okay, give me about 2 weeks, and I'll be back. And they said, okay, we'll see you in 2 weeks. So I go back to Alabama. I start getting my home in order. I start getting rid of things that I don't need. And it took a while. There's a lot of things you have to do when you move. It's sometimes not that easy. So anyways, it's about time to leave. This is like, I remember now, it's like August the 9th, and I'm packing up. And I pack up the U-Haul. I put my pickup truck on the back on a little trailer. I forget what they call it, some kind of dolly that you can put a car on. You don't put it all the way on. You just put the front tires on, and the back of it stays on the ground. So as I'm packing up, I still had some heavy things to get in the truck, and it's really raining a lot. It's really storming and raining. And my friend Orlando stops by the house to say goodbye to me. And I'm like, thank God Orlando came by. He helped me put in the heavy thing. I think I had the washer and dryer and some other big ticket items I had to get in the truck. So he helped me for about an hour, and we said our goodbyes, and I said, well, I'm leaving in the morning. I'm going to leave like probably 5 or 6, So thanks for coming by, and I'll call you when I get to El Paso and let you know how it went. So the next morning I get up, and I remember this whole time I'm still a little nervous, You're never sure if you're doing the right thing. But this time it wasn't like when I was going to go to Florida. Well, I felt a lot of resistance. I didn't feel any resistance, just that little anticipation, that little nervousness, So I put my dog, I had a dog at the time, I put her in the U-Haul, and she was just happy. She just came to life, So I'm driving, and it's pouring down rain. I think it poured all the way from Alabama halfway through Mississippi, And so I think after it stopped raining, I think I took a break to let the dog out, and she was just like happy as can be. She just came to life, and it was like, wow, this is pretty cool. She's really come to life. And later on I thought, maybe she thought when I was packing up I was going to leave her. Well, that wasn't going to happen. So she was happy to get in the truck and go with me. So she'd get out, she'd use the bathroom, I'd put her back in, and she'd go back to sleep. She was a pretty calm dog. She didn't bark a lot or bother a lot, you know. And so driving down, you know, time to get gas, let her out again, just happy as can be, you know, driving down the highway. So I made it all the way to the west side of Fort Worth because that's where I wanted to spend the night. And then the next day I would go into El Paso. So the next day I get up, the dog is happy, put her in the pickup truck, put her in the U-Haul. We made it to El Paso. As soon as I get to El Paso, I called the guys in the band and said, hey, I'm here. I'll be there tomorrow night because they had a gig the next night. Whoa, we got another drummer for tomorrow. I said, but I told you I was going to be here. I sent you an email and I called, told you I'd be here. Oh yeah, but you know how musicians are. They can be unreliable. They weren't sure if I was going to come, so they got another drummer. But I said, hey, listen, I drove all this way. You know, I'm ready to go. And I told you that I was going to play. I told you I'd be ready to play. So they said, okay, yeah. So the next night I played and everything went well. And what was interesting was I arrived in El Paso on August 11th, which was 1 month before September 11th, 1 month before 9/11. That's how I always remember the day that I arrived in El Paso, because a month later 9/11 happened. But anyways, I made it to El Paso and I gigged for the next 10 years. I was playing there in El Paso. And I just thank God that everything went well, had plenty of work. And my 10-year run eventually ran out, and that's another story for another day. Tales from the road. Talk to you guys later. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.